Have you ever heard of a ruler who preferred hunting to governing, yet whose reign saw one of history's greatest empires reach its peak, only to begin its final, irreversible decline? Today we're diving into the dramatic story of Mehmed IV, the 19th Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, also known as Avcı Mehmed or Mehmed the Hunter. His nearly 40-year rule is a tale of incredible highs and catastrophic lows, a story of powerful viziers, epic sieges, and a turning point that would change the map of Europe forever. Mehmed IV's journey to the throne began in turmoil. In 1648, at the tender age of just 6, he was made Sultan. His father, Ibrahim the Pepper, had been overthrown and executed in a palace coup, leaving the vast Ottoman Empire in the hands of a child. As you can imagine, a 6-year-old couldn't actually run the government, so the real power lay with others. The early years of his reign were dominated by a fierce power struggle within the Topkapi Palace. His grandmother, the formidable Child Sultan, and his mother, Turhan Sultan, battled for control as regents. This period was chaotic, filled with factional strife and political instability that weakened the state from the inside. The empire was adrift, desperately needing a firm hand at the helm. That firm hand finally arrived in 1656, not from the Sultan, but from a new Grand Vizier. This marked the beginning of one of the most remarkable political dynasties in Ottoman history, the Koprulu family. The first of them, Koprulu Mehmed Pasha, was an elderly but iron-willed statesman. He was given extraordinary powers by the regent Turhan Sultan to clean up the mess, and he did just that. The Koprulus, first Mehmed Pasha and then his son Fazıl Ahmed Pasha, were exactly what the empire needed. They cracked down on corruption, restored discipline to the military, particularly the unruly Janissaries, and stabilized the state's finances. They were ruthless and effective, executing thousands who stood in their way, but they brought order out of chaos. This period is often called the Koprulu era, a time when the Ottoman Empire experienced a stunning revival. It was like a shot of adrenaline for a weakening giant. Under the guidance of the Koprulu Viziers, the Ottoman war machine roared back to life. While Sultan Mehmed IV was often away on his beloved hunting expeditions, his armies were marching across Europe and the Mediterranean. One of their most significant achievements was the final conquest of Crete. The island had been under siege from the Venetians for over 2 decades in one of the longest sieges in history. Finally, in 1669, the city of Candia fell and the entire island came under Ottoman control. This was a huge victory, celebrated across the empire. The successes didn't stop there. The Ottoman armies pushed into Eastern Europe, clashing with Poland and the Habsburgs. They captured key fortresses and expanded the empire's borders to their greatest territorial extent. In the 1670s, it seemed as if the Ottoman Empire was as powerful as it had been under Suleiman the Magnificent over a century earlier. The revival was real, and Ottoman might was once again a force to be feared across the continent. For a moment, it looked like the empire's glory days were back. But this renewed age of expansion was about to come to a spectacular and disastrous end. The architect of this catastrophe was the Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa Pasha. He was ambitious and perhaps overconfident from the recent string of victories. In 1683, he convinced Sultan Mehmed IV to approve a monumental military campaign, the Siege of Vienna. Vienna was the heart of the Habsburg Empire, the Ottomans' longtime rival. Capturing it would have been a world-changing event. Kara Mustafa marched on the city with a colossal army, one of the largest ever assembled. The siege began, and for 2 months, the fate of Europe hung in the balance. However, the defenders of Vienna held on desperately, and just as the city was about to fall, a massive relief army arrived. This coalition of European forces, led by the Polish king Jan III Sobieski, crashed into the Ottoman lines. The result was a complete and utter rout. The Ottoman army was shattered, and the Battle of Vienna on September 12, 1683 became one of the most decisive moments in European history. It wasn't just a defeat. It was a psychological blow from which the Ottoman Empire would never fully recover. Kara Mustafa Pasha paid for the failure with his life, executed on the Sultan's orders. But his death couldn't undo the damage. The defeat at Vienna was the spark that ignited a massive conflict known as the Great Turkish War. Seeing the Ottomans weakened, a coalition of European powers, the Holy League, consisting of the Habsburg Empire, Poland-Lithuania, Venice, and later Russia, ganged up on them. What followed was a series of devastating losses for the Ottomans. The famed Ottoman military machine, once thought invincible, suffered defeat after defeat. The Habsburgs pushed deep into Hungary, recapturing Buda after 145 years of Ottoman rule. The Venetians seized territory in Greece, and the Poles advanced in the north. For the first time in centuries, the Ottoman Empire was not just failing to expand, but was actively losing vast, long-held territories. The empire was in full retreat. As news of each loss reached Istanbul, the blame inevitably fell on the Sultan. Mehmed IV, the hunter, who had enjoyed the fruits of the Koprulu revival, was now seen as detached and ineffective in the face of disaster. His preference for leisure and the hunt, once tolerated, was now a symbol of his failure to lead. Confidence in his rule completely collapsed. The military, especially the Janissaries, who were bearing the brunt of the defeats, had enough. In 1687, they marched on the capital and demanded his removal. Facing a full-blown mutiny, Mehmed IV was deposed. He was replaced by his brother, Suleiman II. Mehmed's long reign, which had begun with him as a child and seen the empire soar to its greatest heights, ended in humiliation. What happened to Mehmed the Hunter after his fall from power? Like many deposed sultans before him, he was placed under confinement in the palace. He spent the last few years of his life in gilded captivity, a far cry from the sprawling forests and hunting grounds he loved. He died in 1693, a forgotten figure whose time had passed. So how do we remember Mehmed IV? He was a ruler who reigned for an incredibly long time, but rarely ruled directly. His story is really the story of the men who governed for him. His reign is a paradox, a period of stunning revival led by the Koprulu Viziers, which saw the empire reach its maximum size, immediately followed by the catastrophic failure at Vienna and the beginning of a long, painful decline. The defeat in 1683 is widely seen by historians as the beginning of the end for the Ottoman Empire's status as an expansionist superpower. From that point on, it would be a story of defense, retreat, and a desperate struggle to hold on to what was left. Mehmed IV's reign stands as a crucial chapter, the dramatic moment when the tide turned for good. It's a powerful lesson in how quickly fortunes can change, and how the overreach of a single campaign can trigger the decline of a mighty empire. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the most dramatic moments in history. See you next time.